He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about-to-explode bratwurst.
Hey, do you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
We've been waiting for a long time, but we ain't gonna wait no more. We're getting ready to rock and roll. We're gonna 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3.
Welcome to Munsons at the Movies. My name is Kyle and will once again be your host. Joined by the rest of the Munsons, want to give them a wide berth.
What is called a born loser? A real Munson.
And talk a little bit about what's going on in their worlds. We'll start this time with James.
Hit my stride at work, messed around and got a little too important. Family's good, daughter's good, life's good over here, man. I'm excited to talk about a legend with you guys tonight.
Stephen Tobolowsky, are we doing the readout?
Yeah, we're doing Tobolowsky again, right?
Okay, all right, part 2. Case.
I had a nice geography lesson preparing, watching Stay Hungry, which takes place in Alabama, and they reference quite a few towns and cities I'm trying to acclimate myself to in Alabama. But on the opposite side of James, I'm continuing to perfect the art of keeping the bar low and not becoming too important. And I continue to excel at shrugging responsibility and encouraging people to not count on me. So I'm excited about hearing the two sides of that coin from James.
Case, I love how you squeezed in Stay Hungry and it wasn't in the show notes. I'm really interested to see what other movies that shouldn't be involved in this conversation that you find a way to squeeze in. That's good.
Oh, yeah. Stay Hungry introduced Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's very exciting.
What about you, Mr. McKay?
In true English teacher fashion, I'm just going to stick with one of the many things I've watched that needs to be watched by other people. But before that, it needs to be read, which is Colson Whitehead's The Nickel Boys. If you have not read that book, you have to read that book. But if you can't read that book, you have to watch that movie. It's amazing. And it's unlike anything I've ever seen. Other than that, everything is fine. I mean, I'm going through my own weather storms down here. Snowstorms. It's 45 degrees right now outside, so I'm bundled up, trying to stay warm. It's rough out here. I might not go to work tomorrow if it stays like this.
You gotta be careful out there.
Well, I'm glad to be here for episode 113 with you all, as Martin Luther King Jr. would have wanted for us to be here to talk about an acting legend.
Someone who now works with a lot of well-off white people, that's got to be the least offensive misrepresentation of Martin Luther King I'm going to hear over the next 48 hours.
Accurate. Yep.
Well, actually, Aubrey, I think he really would have liked Trump.
I took a trip to the hometown of Martin Luther King on Saturday, and I had a very nice trip to Atlanta.
Oh, damn.
Love Atlanta. Home of Martin Luther King.
There you go. Well, we're happy to have back a Rigby.
Yes.
There's just a particular tenor to that Rigby voice that just brings comfort. And so we've got John Rigby back with us. He lives in Las Vegas, Nevada, where he works as an attorney. He's lawyering all the time. He's a graduate of the UCLA School of Law. He really wants you to know that. He was previously with us for the Allison Janney, William Hurt, Laura Linney, Matt Dillon, and Deborah Winger episodes. Welcome back, John.
Yeah, buddy.
I was trying to remember them all. I forgot the Matt Dillons. It's good that you had the list ready. Yeah, guys, good to hear everybody. Thanks for welcoming me back, and excited to talk about a great artist with a lot of great performances, a lot of depressing performances. I watched a lot of these over the last couple weeks, and I thought I'd seen all the depressing performances until I saw the Detroit Lions on Saturday night. So,
oh, that was a shot. I mean, right across the bow. Wow. Okay.
Anyone on the podcast who'd like a retort?
No retort, but I will say that I did feel like Jeff Bridges and Crazy Heart because I wanted to get drunk after that game. So,
yeah, I can imagine.
I'm glad we have Rigby here tonight. I've already made a note. I'm very interested to hear his lawyer analysis of the legal thriller Jagged Edge.
yeah.
Very excited to talk about that.
This is why you bring on experts to bring the legal analysis.
Yeah.
Stuff like this. Okay.
That's right.
All right, John, you ready to get in some bridges?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, we're going to get into bridges like we're in Pittsburgh. Let's go.
Nice.
There's a lot of bridges there. Birthday is January 30th. We got 3 big ones here. So first and foremost, we got Christian Bale, known for Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight films, American Psycho, The Prestige, Big Short, The Fighter, The Machinist, Vice. This dude's got a ton. Empire of the Sun, Thor: Love and Thunder, Little Women, and He played the voice of Thomas in Pocahontas. How old is Christian Bale? Did you know that last little fact?
I did not, Kyle. That
No.
genuine shock.
Me too.
He's also in Newsies.
Yes, he is. Dude's in a lot.
He's so good at like transforming his body and his look that like I have no idea.
Yes.
He's just been around for so long that I'm thinking 50s. I'm gonna go 51.
I'm gonna say the same thing. This isn't fair because when was the last time we just like saw him being himself?
It's like either him clearly like on a regimen of steroids where he looks gigantic, or him pretending to be like an emaciated drug addict and he's like 100 pounds.
I'm gonna go much higher, 56.
I'm going to continue to climb that ladder. I reviewed a really bad film that he was in. It might have been one of his first films. I thought that was in the 80s. I'm going to say he's 60.
I'll say 52. 52.
Given James the smallest window possible. This guy's an asshole. But you know what? Karma is James' friend because he's turning 51, so it doesn't matter. He only needed a 1-point window.
Ooh, look at that. All right.
Nice.
Second up, we have Olivia Colman, known for roles like The Lobster, The Favorite, The Lost Daughter, Cuban Fury, Wonka. One of those, not like the other. Tyrannosaur, The Crown, The Father, Fleabag, and Hyde Park on the Hudson. How old is Olivia Colman?
This isn't fair because I actually know this.
Really? You have this in the holster?
Then you have to abstain.
It's random that I've got this one, but I got it. She's 24.
I got you.
It's very nice of you.
It's just a $1 guess. He's hoping you all go over.
She's absolutely hilarious in Fleabag. I think she's tremendous in The Crown. Both of those feel like those are like 40-ish age ranges. I'm going to say 47.
I have absolutely zero idea who you're talking about.
Oh, really? If you saw her, you'd recognize her.
I'm going to split the difference between you two. I'm going to say 36.
I feel like she's older. I'm going to go with she's turning 54.
What a range of guesses we have going on right
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a correct answer.
now. Oh,
And the correct answer is she's also turning 51, so James takes it again.
I was going to say Rigby was closer on the other end, but
Price is Right rules. Always
Price
been.
is Right rules. Let's get to our last one. It's a fun one.
Okay.
And it's Kid Cudi. He's known for Trap, which he's just fantastic in
he's
Trap.
so funny in Trap.
Pearl/X, those films, Don't Look Up, Knuckles, Malcolm and Marie, Capone, a noteworthy music career, obviously, and 2014's Need for Speed. How old is Kid Cudi?
Ooh.
Save the worst for last.
And because that's a pile of shit.
I randomly watched Don't Look Up a couple days ago.
Oh, really?
He's hilarious in that. His little bit is so funny in that.
Mm-hmm.
He is laugh out loud funny in Trap.
Mm-hmm.
He's in like 5 total minutes and he steals every scene he's in. No idea on the age though. Kid Cudi's got to be 35.
I'm going to go 38.
42.
I'm going to go 39.
Well, the correct answer is 41, so I believe Case came in the last second.
Nice.
41.
Yeah.
Wow.
Older than I thought, to be honest.
Guys, there's a rule here.
Yeah.
They're always older than you think they are.
Who are? Yeah, who's the they in this scenario, Aubrey?
Black people. Because black doesn't crack. They look great.
Well, happy birthday to those three and anybody else with a birthday on January 30th. All right, we had 5 actors we threw on the wheel for episode 113. That was Will Arnett, Sean Penn, Noel Guglielmi, J.K. Simmons, but it doesn't matter because the wheel selected Jeff Bridges, who, contrary to someone earlier said he has 1,000 credits. It's more like 99. A lot.
Oh, okay. That's it?
Yeah, just 99 acting credits. 9 producing, 20 soundtrack. Obviously done a lot of music over the years. So we're going to talk about the highs, the lows, the things that stand out to us, things that interest us about his roles, his career, his life. But before we get into any of that, we always start with James to see if he can stump us with some trivia, Fast and Furious style.
Yeah, so Rigby, you're a part of the initiated here, and so you know the rules, but for those listening at home who might not, I'm going to read off 3 facts here, 2 of which are going to be true about Jeff Bridges. 1 is not going to be true about him, but will be true about one of the many illustrious cast members of the Fast and Furious franchise. You guys got to guess which one that is. Fact number 1, served 2 years in the military immediately following his high school graduation, eventually rising to the rank of sergeant, which he credits for his ability to portray live-action combat on film. Fact number 2, before asking out his eventual wife to be on a date, he snapped a photo of her just before having his proposal abruptly declined. Thereafter, the now happily married man carries the photo as a reminder that he was initially brushed off by her. Fact number 3. He's only the 5th actor in Oscar history to be nominated for an award for playing a role that had already won the previous actor who portrayed the character an Academy Award.
This dude has lived a really fascinating life, so this very easily could be one of those episodes where all 3 are correct, and James is trying to trip us up here. So I'll throw that out.
Yep.
I know that one is Jeff Bridges.
Love the Rigby's.
So I'm going to go with number 2 and 3 are Jeff Bridges, and number 1 is Vin Diesel.
Classic.
I'm sure number 3 is no longer the lie, so I'm going to take that one off. I'm going to go with number 2 is the lie, and I think that's about Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, which shockingly, Kurt Russell and Jeff Bridges have never done a movie together.
That is shocking.
Yeah.
And they're like good friends.
That I 100% believe. Well, this messes me up because usually when James does an Oscar fact, I rule it out because I've seen the Fast and the Furious movies.
There are a couple Oscar winners in there. There's a couple Oscar winners.
Then you do that and you'll throw in like Brie Larson, who I forget is in them, or Helen Mirren, or Charlize.
Yeah.
I want to do that, but also it goes against the way that I play this game because, rappers don't normally win Oscars. What are we doing there?
Eminem won an Oscar. I don't know what you're talking about.
For acting? I don't remember the first fact, but I'm going to say that one, and I'm going to say it is Tyrese, obviously.
Yeah. Extensive military background.
I don't know what was said, but how dare you guys?
Where else would they have learned to drive in space?
Exactly.
I will go with fact 2. And like John Rigby, I also think that is Vin Diesel, because the only reason one man decides to make 13-part series is because he's spurned by an early wedding marriage proposal that went wrong.
Interesting theory.
He's got something against the world, and so he's decided to just shove it in your face repeatedly. So that's got to be the answer. It's a theory.
I will say sometimes you forget who the skill set of the guest that you are going to bring on for an episode. I personally want to apologize to the integrity of the game for the disrespect I had towards the Rigby family, not expecting them to immediately know.
Either Rigby's a mentalist or he knows everything about the Oscars.
Why can't he be both?
Both?
Yeah, it is an impressive Oscar knowledge. Fact number 3 is true. He's only the 5th actor in Oscar history to be nominated for an Academy Award for playing a role that had already previously won the actor who portrayed the character an Academy Award. You are correct. It was John Wayne won Best Actor for playing Rooster Cogburn in True Grit in 1969. Same role that earned Bridges a nomination. Fact number 2. Before asking out his eventual wife-to-be on a date, he snapped a picture of her just before having his proposal abruptly declined. The now happily married man carries that photo as a reminder that she brushed him off. That's true. Before asking out his wife-to-be, Susan Geston, while shooting on location for Rancho Deluxe in 1979, where she was a waitress in a local Montana restaurant, he took a picture of her, asked her on a date. She said, absolutely not. He now carries that picture around with him. They dated for 3 more years before they got engaged, then married. We're talking 30 plus years of marriage. Been together ever since. He described her as the steadying influence who allows him to roam mentally and physically. You'd have to assume being married to Jeff Bridges takes a lot of patience because he is very much like the characters he portrayed in film. Fact number 1, served 2 years in the military immediately following his high school graduation, eventually rising to the rank of sergeant, which he credits for his ability to portray live-action combat on film. But Jeff Bridges' parents actually sent him to the military academy in the 9th grade to try to teach him some discipline. Clearly didn't work too well. He ended up serving in the United States Coast Guard, like his dad did, and his older brother, Beau. And he didn't serve for 2 years. He served for 8 years during the entirety of the Vietnam War. He reached the rank of petty officer, 2nd class. He does not speak highly of it. He's like, I pretty much did grunt work. You know, when you're not that disciplined, the military doesn't have a lot of use for you. He's like, I was cleaning off boats and doing pretty much anything that wasn't going to require more skill than that. So he never reached the rank of sergeant, unlike Gal Gadot,
That's right.
who plays Giselle Yashar in the Fast and Furious franchise. Served in the Israeli Defense Force for 2 years, reached the rank of sergeant.
Mandatory service. That's not impressive. That's mandatory.
And you don't think the woman with supermodel good looks, they didn't just promote up the pipeline real quick, you know? And she credits it for her landing her first role, which was the 2009 Fast and Furious film.
Completely forgot about that military service. Good job.
Good job, James. All right, Case, what do we got for a snapshot in box office?
Having been in the game for around a half a century, I was interested to see how Bridges' work and numbers would stack up against other performers that we've reviewed so far. Bridges has had a significant impact on the box office throughout his career. While not always the lead in blockbuster franchises, he has consistently drawn audiences to films across multiple genres. I think what's interesting with him is his seamless transition between major studio projects and smaller budgeted films. Drilling into one of the biggest successes is The Last Picture Show, which ranks 16th on all of our films, and I think we're well over 3,000 now, on return on investment. And then Iron Man, Tron Legacy, and True Grit each brought in over $200 million world gross. On the negative side, R.I.P.D. and Heaven's Gate would both end up on the wrong end of that return on investment. R.I.P.D. losing $52 million, Heaven's Gate losing $40.5 million. However, the movie that was a stinkeroo that I want to talk about is actually the 2009 movie Open Road, which was budgeted for $10 million, world grossed an impressive $20,000. James, any input on what the producers from the Open Road can do with the lucrative haul they pulled in from this movie?
You could pay off in full a nice 2018 Nissan Rogue
Ooh.
SV. You're not going to get the luxury, but you'll get the sport for it.
Okay.
SV's better than the S.
How many miles are we looking at?
About 50,000 miles. It's in good condition.
Okay.
But you could get one of those.
It wasn't a total loss.
No.
So they got that working for them.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so here are the comparative numbers. For average budget, his films are $33.4 million, which comes in 68th. Total box office, $2.83 billion, which comes in at 61st. Star meter, 973, which ranks 55th. Critic ranking, 64.9, putting him 13th. Fan ranking, 60.2, puts him in at 49th. 84 and 17 in our two different box office metrics. And overall ranking, 35th.
I'm going to go with his Munson Meter is going to outrank his box office. That's going to be my guess when it's all said and done.
I was really surprised by total box office and fan ranking.
I don't think you even mentioned the movie that I'm covering, and it lost like $16 million. Like, it was terrible. I was shocked by how bad his box office numbers were.
Are you referring to 8 Million Ways to Die?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, bingo, nailed it.
Yeah. It's
That's a bingo.
I agree with Kyle. I think his number would probably be higher.
He has 10 movies that lost 10 or more $1 million.
Crazy.
A guy who's gotten 7 Oscar noms has 10% of his movies that lost that much money. That's a wild, stark contrast.
I feel like it makes sense, though. Like, that stark contrast. He's a weird dude.
Yeah.
I feel like what goes through his mind when he reads a script is unlike anybody else.
Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I sent you guys over that list of roles that he turned down.
Oh, yeah, they're incredible.
And that sums it up. Like Indiana Jones, Superman. I mean, iconic roles that defined like other people's careers. He was just like, meh.
That sets the stage really nicely for our Jeff Bridges conversation. So a guy that's been acting since he was a baby in the 50s, 70 plus years he's been on screen. So let's get into the minutia. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, man.
Like James talked about, born in LA, both of his parents were actors. So he's born into an acting family. It's not like he randomly ran into this by happenstance. He's born into it. Dorothy Bridges and Lloyd Bridges, his dad, who he acted with quite a few times throughout his career. And his brother, Beau, who you would recognize as well, also an actor.
Remind me, because we're only over 100 episodes in, is nepotism part of the Munson Meter? I can't remember.
Could be.
Okay.
Depends.
What a Nepo baby.
I will say it makes it, it's really hard to earn a couple extra points from you when you're a Nepo baby, but I'll admit defeat when someone proves me wrong, and he seems to be one of the few who have proven me wrong.
And Lloyd Bridges, he was awesome. One of the highlights in Airplane.
Cut from the cloth there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But he's born in 1949, and his first role ever was in a film with his dad, The Company She Keeps. He played the infant at the train station. I think he was like 6 months old in that scene. He's just crying baby. But that's where you got to start. Total Nepo baby stuff, man. You can't even talk yet, and you're already in movies? Like, come on.
I did read that he had great attention to detail in this role, so starting early.
Really good cues. Crying on cue, right? He continued his acting career very young alongside his father in Sea Hunt, which was a big show that his dad was in back in the day. He was in 4 episodes of that between 58 and 60. So from the age of 9 to 11, just popping into his dad's big show at that time while he's just being a kid and doing all those things.
I heard Jeff Bridges tell an interesting formative story about there was a day where a director was yelling at a production assistant, and his dad stopped everything and demanded that the director apologize to that person in front of everybody else. Being on the set with his dad clearly had a super formative and positive impact on his development as an actor.
Did his dad show the Lloyd Bridges show? I mean, it shows you how big his dad was. Had his own show there in the early 60s. Played a couple characters between 62 and 63, so age of 13, 14. Graduated high school and toured with his dad on stage in the late 60s. You don't have to go too far to learn how to act when you're with your dad. But I guess you eventually moved to New York City to study acting at the Herbert Berghof studio because you're probably like, you know what, I need to maybe look at this from a different perspective. And then to James's point, U.S. Coast Guard from 67 to 75, 8 years there in San Luis Obispo in California. During that time, though, I think it's very important to note for Case, because I know Case really cares about this. He did make it into the Lassie-verse in an episode in 1969 as Cal.
I think our podcast does an excellent job of chronicling the Lassie franchise, so I'm glad we continue to do that.
I would really be thankful if you called it the Lassie-verse, because they're paying us handsomely to say that. So that would be wonderful.
I love that.
Otherwise, he had 7 other projects before 1971 and was doing some stage work during that time. So just kind of getting his name out there, not just Lloyd Bridges' son. And then we're going to get to what we're calling his first major role, which is legitimately his first major role, and that's his role as Duane in The Last Picture Show in 1971. And like we've seen with a couple actors in 113 episodes, comes out of the gate with a Oscar nomination in his first major picture, and Aubrey has it.
Well, this is a lucky draw. This is one of those movies that you're told to watch because it's so good. So I was really excited to cross this off my list. 1971, Peter Bogdanovich film with a bunch of people, I'm going to be honest and respectful, that I don't know. Ellen Burstyn I know. Sybil Shepherd I know. Jeff Bridges I know. The rest of them all are wonderful people that I'm sure were great actors in their time. I do not know them. I was not familiar with their work up until this point. But in 1951, a group of high schoolers come of age in a bleak, isolated, atrophied North Texas town that is slowly dying both culturally and economically. Basically, this is a slice of life film. You're just kind of watching a group of people in a small town live life. I don't want to say cope with being in a small town, but maneuver through a small town. It's kind of a sad watch, watching these people go through all of this and maneuver through it. 70s film that is slice of life. It's very slow, but I enjoyed it. It's funny at times. It's clever at times. I think it would impact me more if I understood the cultural backdrop a little bit better, what statements are trying to be made, because I know statements are being made. I just don't know exactly what. Jeff Bridges is awesome. He's one of those people that I always, to me. So seeing him as a young person, I found to be fascinating. It's just so cool to see him as a young 20-something, because I'm pretty sure that's about how old he was, maybe, playing a teenager. There's a lot of charm there, a little bit of charisma. You get to watch him beat up a guy, which was pretty funny. It's a good performance. It's hard for me to speak to its quality in reference to the Oscars, but it's a good performance. And for a first major role, it's really impressive. But you get to see glimpses of what I think defines him as an actor, which is his charisma. You see little bits and pieces of it all throughout. It definitely lives up to the hype.
Movie critics and movie historians love this movie because it's about the death of particular kind of movie. It kind of straddles that era of old Hollywood entering new Hollywood. And this is kind of an homage to it's black and white. Last Picture Show is that one screen movie theater. They only show classic Westerns. the sort of literate movie community really, really loves this film.
The downside of Jeff Bridges, there was so many good movies to watch and so many I hadn't seen before. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't get to this. I didn't get to King Kong. There was just a bunch and I watched probably 20 movies to prep for this and just couldn't get to it.
For those who are watching it for the first time, check out the film debut of Randy Quaid.
Oh, I did not, but I will definitely check for that.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. Go watch it.
It's a good start. See some of that charisma that kind of marks his career. Well, literally next role is what we're calling highest critic score, and that is his role as Ernie in Fat City, which when I sent this to John originally, he texted me, he was like, Fat City's awesome. So I have a feeling this wasn't a first-time watch for Rigby for highest critic score.
It wasn't, but it's been a while since I've seen it, and man, it's depressing.
It is.
If Last Picture Show is grim, this is even grimmer. Fat City is actually a precursor. I'll get into the plot details in a little bit, but on my second watch, I realized that the movie Kingpin would not exist. The namesake of this podcast would not exist without this movie, because it's literally about a washed up former athlete who tries to use, I think, as a proxy, this younger athlete to try to revitalize his own career. But all of that without the laughs and the feel-goodness of Kingpin, because this movie is depressing as hell. Fat City is from 1972. It's directed by famous director and actor John Huston, otherwise known as Noah Cross in Chinatown. Directed a ton of great movies.
Angelica's dad.
Yeah.
And this was kind of his comeback. He had kind of, I think in the 60s, was just kind of wandering aimlessly as a director. And then he did this, and it kind of critically just took off. And so his career kind of rebounded quickly after it. Fat City's about Stacy Keach plays a washed up boxer named Billy Tuddy living in Stockton, California, which is like Central Valley, California. He's basically been left by his wife. His boxing career, which was once promising, has since faded. He lives literally paycheck to paycheck, day to day in an apartment in Stockton, California. And one day he gets out of bed after he can't smoke one more cigarette in bed and goes to the gym, and he sees a young upstart there played by Jeff Bridges, whose name is Ernie Munger. Through that and through a quick kind of practice sparring with him, decides to kind of try to put the drink and the smokes aside and to try to get back while training him and working with him to try to kind of get back on his own feet, all the while kind of still exploring and sometimes popping into, the latest dive bars in Stockton, California. I really like this movie because it features characters truly living on society's margins. See a movie feature characters like that, and people call it a success and still talk about it to this day, and it's a Criterion Collection film.
Mm-hmm.
This movie just smells like cigarette smoke and tastes like whiskey. Like it just has that feel for all of it. So
yeah, the things that stuck out to me, the aforementioned Susan Tyrrell, she was nominated for an Oscar. She's like on 100 the whole film.
very good. Yeah.
Performance definitely stands out.
Would be tough to do a rewatch quickly again, because it's a performance that you're just mesmerized by, but you're also so just like frustrated and annoyed by. And so you're just like, oh my God, that when she's on screen, you can't take your eyes off her, but you don't want to listen to her. It's just,
Oh yeah,
it's one of those like really great performances.
she's a handful. Oma, I believe is her character's name.
Yeah.
My number two observation was it was kind of cool to learn about how John Huston was a boxer and include a lot of his buddies and friends in the boxing community in the film, and gave him like
Cool.
parts and roles, which I thought was cool. You don't really think about Jeff Bridges much. I mean, he plays an archetype more than anything else, but it's really about Stacy Keach and his journey. So I don't tie it much to Bridges, honestly.
No, it's a Stacy Keach movie. I haven't read the book, but my understanding is that the Jeff Bridges character, Ernie, has a much deeper arc and much more kind of like fleshed out arc in the book than the movie. He's just kind of window dressing for Stacy Keach.
Yeah. The next three roles are movies that, like I mentioned earlier, like they're ones I wish I would have had more time to get to. I just couldn't get to. So, but they all have really high scores and reviews, and that's Bad Company, Iceman, Cometh, and The Last American Hero.
I saw Last American Hero.
It's all right.
It's all right. I mean, the pacing is a bit rough. Morally, it's a bit odd what it's trying to get across. I think the racing stuff is really good and had a potential to be like a really impressive thing that would make me want to watch this movie time and time again. But it's over edited. You get a shot outside the car You get a shot inside the car, then you get a shot of another guy. So I don't really understand what's happening. I feel like a far more impressive feat is just showing me the racing from outside of the car.
He's the lead, right?
Yeah, he is full stop the lead, 100%. And I will say, this is one of the ones where it's not his best work. This movie is set up for like a movie star performance. Lead this with your charisma and your charm. Make it all make sense or make everybody forget about it. And he didn't pull the weight on that for me. I was much more impressed with the racing and the car chases than I was the person that was actually involved in all that. I finished it. I can't say that about 3 other movies I watched.
I didn't see it, but the Iceman Cometh is an important role because he initially turned it down. And either his manager or a director he knew called him and was like, no, man, you got to do it. In Jeff Bridges' words, I'm tuckered out, man. I don't want to do the movie. And he's like, nope, you got to do it. It became an important role for him because he didn't know if he was going to act. And getting to work along some like really professional performers. Mm-hmm. I guess the Iceman Cometh is a really famous play.
Yeah.
The theatrical version, it really invigorated him. He said, when people are professional, they have to do something even if they don't want to. And I don't really want to do this movie right now, but I'm going to do it to see if I can do it professionally.
That's a good note. 1974, he played Lightfoot in Thunderbolt and Lightfoot and got another Oscar nom. And what's interesting too is he talks about like in the 70s, they're like no one really campaigned at the time.
Yeah.
So this is when like if you got an Oscar nom, you'd be alerted the night of later, be like, hey, by the way, you were nominated for an Oscar. Oh crap, really? Cool,
man.
Careful, man. There's a beverage here.
We all should be wearing robes for this.
That's right. He stole this. He stole the show in this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
I think this was supposed to be an Eastwood movie, and then it ended up being a Jeff Bridges movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to watch because like the dynamic is so intentionally jarring. Where you have Eastwood doing Eastwood, he's the cool, calculated. Even when he's like a criminal or he's the good guy, like he plays this similar type of I got it all figured out. And then when you put him with Bridges, who's like clearly leaning into his kind of like space cadet, I'm a California boy, hippie, carefree persona, I found a very unexpected dynamic where, one, I was shocked what the movie actually was, and two, I was shocked when he got nominated for an Academy Award because I don't feel like buddy road trip movies like that get nominated for Academy Awards. But it was cool to see. It was fun to watch. And Kyle, I also experienced a shocking jump scare cameo from Gary Busey when he was like
Gary
20 years
Busey,
old.
right?
Yeah. Like, oh shit.
He was also in The Last American Hero. I was looking at it too. Very early. Yeah, it caught me off guard because I was like, what the hell? Is that Busey? He looks good. Like, what's going on here? They asked a lot of Bridges in this role when you think of like the trauma he has to experience. I mean, he's cross-dressing at one point in time as part of the heist. It wasn't just like you show up and do your regular job type of role. They ask a lot of him and his character. And the entire emotional arc of the story, he's having a stroke and Eastwood's character doesn't pick it up. And next thing you know, he realizes he's real far away from hospital and he doesn't dump his body. So he cares about the kid.
Yeah, bro, that's after like an hour. Like that doesn't show up for a long time. Like the first hour of this movie is like them trying to find some money and Bridges being like annoying as shit to Eastwood, who's just like, let's just be like good businessmen style criminals. And Bridges is like, let's just get laid, bro. Like, why are you so weird? It's like
bringing the hookers over. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll do it.
Why do you give a shit about this so bad?
That was my first Bridges watch. And I was like, this is kind of fun. All right, well, let's get to largest critic gap. A lot of his reviews early in his career in 1975, Hearts of the West. And this was my review. So this has a 90-42 split on Rotten Tomatoes. This is a big gap. The concept is our boy Jeff Bridges plays an aspiring Western writer, Western film writer. He wants to write Westerns in the 1930s, and he travels to California and gets convinced to act in low-budget Westerns. So he goes there thinking, I'm going to write them, and then he meets a stuntman. If you know the guy, Andy Griffith, you ever hear of him? He had a show in the 70s. So Andy Griffith plays this stuntman amongst this group. They convince him to start acting in these B-movie Westerns. And it reveals the side of the industry he just didn't understand and desperately wanted to be in originally, but kind of experiences something different. So you get the supporting roles from Andy Griffith, His love interest in the movie is a young Blythe Danner, which I thought was interesting. She's ripping cigs the whole movie. And also the director of the B film is a young, dapper Alan Arkin. And he is doing Alan Arkin shit where he's just like going off the whole time and trying to basically manipulate all these stunt guys because he doesn't have much of a budget and he's trying to make it work with what he's got. What's intriguing about it from the Bridges standpoint is he's playing an actor who's bad at acting. It's always interesting to watch is how well can an actor pretend to be a bad actor in a film. I think he did a decent job, but the people who really love this movie, the fans who love this movie, think it is a great insight into the world of B Westerns at that time. We're not talking the Eastwoods. We're not talking, Rooster Cogburn. We're talking just making a buck to get the super fans something they love with corny ass fight scenes, corny ass horse chases, like anything like that. His backstory is thinner than paper in water. And there's a whole stalking subplot that is completely unnecessary, but it gives a solid view at the world of B filmmaking from what I can tell. So I'm probably in like the 50 range, 50, 55. I'm probably closer to the audiences on this one.
Tarantino probably loves this movie.
Would not be shocked. It is not one of those ones, no matter what service you're on, looking at, if you're on Apple TV, you're on your Roku, you're whatever, and you're searching Jeff Bridges, this movie will not show up under his name. You've got to search it out. So it's just not one that's kind of well known out in the ether. Clearly, none of you guys have seen it. So
Tarantino said he loved the movie that I'm reviewing, and I'm starting to think that Tarantino just says he loves movies that are in the same genre that he likes to make that are clearly not his peer of like quality.
Gotcha.
Oh, I love these noir thrillers that are clearly C+ at best.
As I say that, I'm instantly disappointed that Tarantino and Bridges also never worked together. Tarantino could have put together some killer dialogue for Bridges to deliver.
All right, 76, King Kong. He plays Jack. I saw the trailer. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but it is some corny-ass trailer work.
So I watched this last night, actually. It almost feels like a bridge film. This is a monster movie that needed to happen to kind of modernize like monster movies. It had some corniness, right? Like you were talking about in the trailer, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's some other scenes. I'm like, man, this is 1976. Like, this is done well. The only jarring thing that I had, and I guess it's because it's from the 70s, King Kong was kind of handsy with Jessica Lange. It felt like he was groping her more than anything else. Like, it was kind of uncomfortable.
Not great with consent, huh?
No.
Really.
His character reminds me exactly of Hooper from Jaws. But he was kind of that nerdy, like, educated person that was trying to make sure knowledge and insight were driving the actions of this movie. This was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. But at the same time, if I was having a conversation with somebody and they're like, King Kong from 76 is trash, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. But I enjoyed watching it. But it did feel like a bridge film.
That was Jessica Lange's first ever role.
I did, yeah.
That will be on the podcast if we ever cover her.
It's so funny to hear of actors and characters in movies being problematic and then hearing like even King Kong in the 70s was problematic. Like
cancel him.
Yeah. That's
the bit with King Kong, though. That's the bit with all of them, except Kong Skull Island.
on the check. Yeah, he steals the check up on the mountain. Yeah, it's also crazy to think that he was considered for the role of Hooper. I mean, I guess you mentioned like there's so many iconic roles. Yeah, it would have been great to be in Jaws, but like I can't imagine that role as anyone else.
The only thing I will say Jeff Bridges centric about this movie, I found his character to be kind of forgettable.
Well, the next couple here I noted, Heaven's Gate, which we talked about, lost a lot of money. I was going to watch it, and then I saw it was 3.5 hours long. But Cutter's Way, Aubrey, I gave it about half of the film, and then I said, this isn't for me.
Oh, no.
I didn't love Cutter's Way. Sorry, Rigby.
Cutter's Way is John Hurd's movie, though.
He's good. Maybe it was just a mood thing at the time, but I was like, I'm good on this. I think that's enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
People love that, though. Jeff Bridges' character name in that one, John, do you remember it?
I don't think I do.
The character's name is Dick Bone.
Oh, yeah. Dick Bone, yeah.
That's Aubrey students who are listening. You're welcome.
We're watching monster movies, by the way.
There was a jump there from 76 to 81 as well. There wasn't much. He did some projects, but nothing really worth mentioning. But we're going to talk about Tron. Not Chappelle's Tron, Who's Living for the City?
That's right.
But Tron, 1982. Not Tron, who bought these babies straight cash. Tron, which is a very trippy movie.
Got your girl, Chuck. Might be one of my favorite lines with all of the Chappelle shows.
We give a lap dance to the world's richest man. I mean, I knew kind of what to expect, but not really.
Yeah, I've never seen the whole thing, but I know just how like crazy influential it was in terms of its visual effects.
Yeah, I haven't seen the whole thing either.
By choice.
I really tried. It's so weird.
It is.
Yeah.
I can get on board for a movie that looks as weird as this movie looks. Because it's like, all right, whatever, this is the world you're creating, fine. But like, what the movie's trying to accomplish, just from like a story structure, doesn't make sense. And it's weird. And like, they don't establish this world that they're in very well, or how it works. I tried to get in on this, and I could not. I'm not even going to say that this one's not for me. This I think is objectively bad.
I know of it, of course. And then in watching it, what I saw was a movie that very clearly kind of blew people's minds with what it was doing.
Yeah.
And the commitment to computer graphics and animation had not really been done at that full scale level. And the plot itself is a little mundane, I guess. It's not as dramatic as the visual effects are. But I will say the storyline, generally speaking, even though it's a little simple, is pretty much forward, has like on the nose forward thinking as like where we kind of are at, where it's like, you know, obviously not as the sci-fi level, but the rest of it, a little, what's the word, predicting where technology was going.
Especially with a sequel, 40 years later?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie was a like watershed moment in sci-fi movies.
30.
At the time, it was doing things that probably hadn't been done in film. And then to like have the sci-fi and the special effects kind of be the driving part of this movie, I think was interesting for audiences. What I found interesting about this movie is that opening weekend, it made $4.8 million, but then it would go on to world gross $33 million. So that meant when people went and watched this movie, they told everybody, like, holy shit, you got to go see this movie. I wouldn't say it was ahead of its time, but I think it was a very pioneering sci-fi movie.
I think one of the problems with sci-fi movies is there's so much work to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to build the world and place people in it in a way that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times the latter gets lost in these movies, and so they end up not working. I can see why people think this would look cool. It's unlike anything I've seen, so I can engage with it on that way. From a story structure, I can't comment too much because I didn't watch the whole thing. The establishment of the world and how it works, I can't engage with. And because I can't engage with that, I can't sit through this movie because I don't really understand what I'm looking at. I want to engage, but I can't. When I watch sci-fi movies that establish the world in a way that I can engage with, I usually give them a lot of grace for the story part because at least I can understand the world, and that part I can engage with in an interesting way. So I care less what the characters actually have to do.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of something like Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy that movie.
Same.
Because the world is established in a way that I find to be really engaging. I care less what actually is happening. This movie is the opposite.
So you hated Seventh Son too, then, because I feel like it's the same.
I was gonna watch that movie, but then I had to rent it, and I was like, "No thanks." Already had to rent a couple other movies. I wish I didn't have to rent.
Yeah, don't spend the money on that. It was disqualified for an Academy Award nomination for special effects because the Academy felt that at the time using computer-generated effects was considered cheating.
Oh, wow.
That is hilarious. That's so funny to be so ahead of the time that everyone's like, fuck that.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, the sequel in 2012 made $400 million.
Nostalgia.
Directed by Joseph Kosinski, the director of Top Gun Maverick.
When I hear Kaczynski, I just think Unabomber,
Ted.
so I had to double check. I had to double check to make sure you name drop the right one. I was like, are we sure we're talking about the right guy?
That's a talented terrorist. I'll tell you what.
Imagine being like, listen, I don't agree with what he did or his political views, but he did kind of save cinema after COVID.
Against All Odds played Terry.
The remake of the fantastic noir movie starring Robert Mitchum called Out of the Past, which is probably up there with Double Indemnity for like the best film noir ever. But this is great. He plays a former football player who turns PI and has to go try to save a woman. Very, very good. Very creepy James Woods, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure that's who plays her like abusive boyfriend in it. It's kind of a nice little 4, maybe 5-year stretch of him doing these really interesting kind of neo-noir movies. I think Cutter's Way kind of started it. Against All Odds.
Yeah.
Continues it. Jagged Edge, I think, is more of a legal thriller than a noir thriller, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But The Morning After and 8 Million Ways to Die, he kind of assumes this role of the leading man in these really, really dark neo-noir movies, which I think is a great 80s genre.
I love hearing an actor that can play an athlete and not look like he's 45 so that's important.
Yeah, I mean, similar to the boxing criticism we had about Fat City, the football scenes, while limited, are not the best. You go to see this movie for the making out in the ocean. You don't go for the football scene.
The only thing I remember from this movie is the Phil Collins song.
He wrote it for the movie.
Yes. Everywhere.
Yeah.
So his work in this paved the way for his work in Tarzan in 1999. That's good to know.
Yep.
Starman, 1984, another Oscar, Golden Globe noms. Plays an alien who's adjusting. Alien orb comes down, assumes the identity of a woman's dead husband.
He said that this role is the role that he thinks closest portrays his actual personality on film of all the roles he's had.
As an alien?
Dude, he's dead serious about it. And there's a quote, it's funny, like from his brother Beau. You just have to get to know my brother to understand what he means by that. He is so careless about things on Earth that he is so detached. He's like created his own world that he is in awe of like normal, everyday Earth interactions at this point. In the interview, they follow up and they ask like how he comes to pick roles. He's like, all right, well, if this role is what you most related to, it's like, how come you haven't picked other roles like that? And he said, well, with a labyrinth like a movie role, he's like, once you make the decision to go in and once you've chosen it, he's like, around and around you go. He's like, and eventually you find the center. That does not answer that question.
Very Jeff Bridges' answer, though.
So we think of him as like, he's got to be like the dude. And it's like, he's actually more like this existential questioning the world pseudo-intellectual from California as opposed to a pothead, really.
So an interview where he was trying to figure out how to play this, he was like, which one of my friends is most like an alien? Because that's who I'm going to act like. I picked this guy, and then he was like, how am I going to move? And he wanted to move like a dancer. And so him and this dancer would get together and rehearse how to move. And there's a scene where he has to do it naked. So he would practice in the nude all the time. And his wife walked in on him one time preparing for this role, moving like an alien naked in his office. I'll come back later.
That's training you can only get at the Herbert Berghof studio in New York City. So
I made it 45 minutes.
All right.
And I was just like, no. I knew within like 10, though. When he assumes the identity of her dead husband, and the scene is him morphing into this person from newborn baby through all the stages. And then he stands up and she makes this connection and doesn't respond in a way that I feel you would respond to having just seen that. I was like, I'm done. I can't. The Jeff Bridges stuff, I'm going to call it odd because I don't want to call it bad. I find it hard to watch this movie because of it. Because it's just like hearing him stutter over words and look confused all the time and then ask about stuff in relation to the stuff he knows should probably also know.
it seems like you don't think it's worthy of an Oscar nom. That's what I'm gathering here.
No. They had to have been campaigning at this point in the Academy history.
I thought it was interesting and different. I don't know if I'd call it a great performance, but it's definitely something unique from anything he'd done before. Maybe for bad, but definitely unique.
I will agree with that.
Let's get to what we really came here for, and that is our legal consultation. John Rigby, he's billing us per hour because we brought him in here to really talk about Jagged Edge from 1985. And
that's right.
It's pro bono.
Wow. I wasn't expecting this, but yeah, I mean, it's a good movie. It stars Glenn Close, Jeff Bridges, Peter Coyote. Glenn Close is basically torn throughout the whole movie of trying to represent Jeff Bridges, who's a San Francisco millionaire accused of murdering his wife. Really good performances. Screenplay's great, written by a guy named Joe Esterhaus, who later wrote Basic Instinct and a bunch of other kind of erotic thrillers in the same mold. The legal part, maybe not so much. I mean, it's hard to do like criminal law and make it look real in movies. I think the thing that would probably ding this movie for the most is there's about 1 million ethics violations that don't even get talked about. So, but that's kind of getting too in the legal weeds. You can't really have a good, effective legal thriller with some, morality at stake without having a couple ethical violations here or there. So,
Jeff Bridges, his character seduces Glenn Close, right?
Yeah.
Jeff Bridges is a handsome guy, though. I don't blame her. He's handsome.
Yeah, he is.
All right, let's get to our lowest critic score from James. I'm going to talk about 8 Million Ways to Die. He plays Matt in 1986.
8 Million Ways to Die had a 0% from critic scores and a 39% from audience. That is not a very high rating. It was released in 1986. It's a film based on a crime drama book series that was actually very popular. It stars Jeff Bridges as a troubled LA cop kind of dealing with alcoholism and the guilt he is experiencing over a fatal shooting on the job. His character crosses paths with a call girl played by an actress named Alexandra Paul, who is caught up with a drug lord portrayed by a very young Andy Garcia, and his girlfriend, who I found out originally was cast to be Jamie Lee Curtis, but was recasted as Rosanna Arquette.
Okay.
What begins as an attempt to help Alexandra Paul escape the seedy underworld real quickly spirals into like a chaotic and disappointing mess. At first, I'd hoped this movie might take some interesting and unexpected turns. I enjoyed how it was set up, but pretty much from like the opening scene, you're like, all right, this doesn't look great. It became very clear that me hoping it would be interesting was wishful thinking. Despite the star power of Jeff Bridges, Rosanna Arquette, Andy Garcia, it is like a disjointed wreck. The dialogue is clearly being like improvised. Instead of diving through the plot holes, I decided to focus on why the movie is like this and how it got to this point. I found out very quickly, chaotic nature of the film, not the cast's fault. It's the production itself was a disaster, riddled with behind-the-scenes conflict and mismanagement. The director, Hal Ashby, who actually was the one who convinced Bridges to take the role, was fired immediately following principal photography wrapped. So like the movie had like barely even started and they fired the director. The studio that was in charge, PSO Entertainment, had like almost no experience at that time, took over and made a ton of great decisions, which was the partially completed script, which was based off of an Oliver Stone screenplay. They brought in someone new to rewrite what Ashby had written. Became incredibly expensive. He added a gun battle at an airport, which they couldn't afford. Immediately was poorly received, prompting it to be rewritten a fourth time. And the new scriptwriter came out and was like publicly critical of the last guy that they hired. And he said, quote, if it had any more clarity, it might have risen to the dignity of an exploitation film.
Jesus.
So he came in and was like, that dude sucked. Because at this point, it was getting such bad press that they were trying to like put the blame on someone else. This is before it's even finished. They were like, no, it's going to be good. That guy's the reason it was bad. So the previous writer obviously became furious, and he only visited the set one more time after those comments were made. He wanted to have his name taken off of the movie entirely, but it was too late at that point, and the credits were already made up for it. So instead, he used a pseudonym, put his name on the film, and so his name's not actually on it. And even Jeff Bridges, years later, commented publicly that like the lack of cohesive script, despite involvement of like renowned talent, they like knew this movie was going to be terrible as they were filming it. And the end result was a film so disorganized and unfocused that even those cast members couldn't salvage it. It flopped, made $1.3 million on an $18 million budget. Overall, I wouldn't give it a 0. I saved that for movies like Mob Town with David Arquette. 0 is like actively offensive. Like the fact that you call it a movie is insulting to me, and I wouldn't put that with this. I would say there's more like a 20%.
James, was David Lee Henry the writer that they were trashing?
Yes, and that's not his real name.
So he wrote both Roadhouses and the Steven Seagal classic, Out for Justice.
Oh, nice.
His real name is R. Lance Hill.
Yep, that's the guy. All right, yeah, that's him for sure.
John, isn't Hal Ashby like a notoriously like famous director?
Yes.
Oh yeah, he owned the 70s. He did Harold and Maude, The Last Detail, Shampoo, Coming Home. But then this is his last movie.
Oh, okay.
He died shortly after.
He was so insulted when they fired him. He wanted to bring on because there's an alcoholic kind of story plot here, right? And he wanted to bring on like actual people who've dealt with that to like the actual realism in it. And you could tell from like the jump, like it starts with an AA meeting. And when Jeff Bridges introduces himself, that's not how people introduce themselves at AA.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's not realistic. It's like,
Oliver Stone and Robert Towne are, I mean, I know the script is a mess, but the fact that they at least had their fingerprints on this at some point, it should be good. Like Jeff Bridges as a washed up former cop digging into stuff with a really, really creepy Andy Garcia as the villain. I mean, this movie should be good, but it's just not.
8 million souls died watching that. Most likely, actually, there's not 8 million people who've seen it.
Brain cells?
Yeah, maybe. That's true. It's one of a couple movies I watch where there's AA meetings involving Jeff Bridges' character. So we got a big chunk before our last review. So 87 to 2006. There's a lot of stuff in here. Try to hit a lot of the highlights. First and foremost, Tucker, the man in his dream. He played Preston Tucker from 1988. Didn't hate the movie.
No, it's a good movie.
I didn't know anything about the Tucker brand of cars. I mean, the real story is a little bit of a departure from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt it was a story that was very timeless with 3 big companies that own the market coming out and finding every way possible to sabotage an entrepreneur because they don't want to share any of the market. And that feels like a very 2024, 2025 story for business in America.
I think this is also the first movie he did with his dad as an adult, correct?
I think so. I hate saying if you had a better actor, this story might have had more legs, but I just don't think a lot of people know about this. Maybe it is because it's Jeff Bridges carrying the film. I don't know. Like, I think he does a good job, but I don't know if he's like top notch. If you change the actor out, this film becomes something that people actually know about.
I think if there's an air having Jeff Bridges as part of this, is I remember in the late 80s, early 90s, there being a little bit of Jeff Bridges fatigue. And this may be a movie where people are like, oh, another Jeff Bridges movie. I don't know.
It's a Francis Ford Coppola film that is from 1988, but because of the lighting, it looks super modern. Like, it looks like a film that was filmed in 2007.
Yeah. I like this movie just because I like the story.
I do too.
And so I've watched this movie since it came out. So I don't know why it didn't do better.
Fabulous Baker Boys, 1989, played Jack. I hear him talk a lot about that one in his interviews.
Great movie. Michelle Pfeiffer's so hot in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Jeff Bridges and Beau Bridges, like the chemistry between them is so good. Great, like brothers acting together.
Yeah.
I don't want to say they're playing themselves, but you could imagine the relationship that they had is kind of similar to that because Beau Bridges isn't nearly as outgoing and as flamboyant as Jeff Bridges is.
I agree.
That's the arc of the two characters. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer falls in love with Jeff Bridges' character. He's just out there.
Yeah, good movie.
Really good.
Another funny Beau comment on his brother Jeff is that they used to joke, but seriously, they looked up at the actual mental illness for it, that Jeff had an illness called like abulia, which is complete inability to make a decision. The whole family is like, hey, we should like look into see if you have this because we think you do. And it's just so funny to see how distant Jeff is from like the actual Bridges family when it comes to personalities.
May make him a good actor because I heard him say in multiple interviews, like he just wants directors, tell me what to do. I'll just do it.
That's why I love the Coen brothers. Like they're so meticulous. He's like, they ask a billion questions and by the end of it, I know exactly what they want from me.
I bet he lose his fucking mind if he had to act alongside Jim Carrey. He would absolutely, he'd murder him. There'd be no way. Like improvising again, it's not in the script. What are you doing? The Fisher King, 1991, played Jack. Got a Golden Globe nom alongside Robin Williams in this one.
Very dark, but it's Terry Gilliam.
Yep.
From Monty Python, so you come to expect that.
It's a dark story, but it's definitely got a comedic twist to it, and it makes sense once you realize that Monty Python connection. And I'll say Jeff Bridges, I mean, his character stands out in this one. He's Rush Limbaugh, radio host, who essentially inadvertently says something to where a guy like performs a terrorist act against a bunch of people. He like loses his mind, gets confused for a homeless guy, and ends up connecting with Robin Williams, and then turns into like wingman story. It's very hard to explain. I'm realizing right now. If you love Robin Williams, you should go watch it.
I agree.
Yeah.
The Vanishing, he played Barney Cousins, 1993.
I've never seen this, but I know people savage it because it's totally different than the remake in that I guess the ending of this is a much happier ending, whereas the original one from the 80s, I think it's either Norwegian or Swedish. I think it's Norwegian, has like one of the most grim endings of all time. And I know that the Hollywood remake of it took a different direction. And I know the critics savaged it.
And what's interesting about that, John, is it's the same director.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Stanley Kubrick has said that the villain in the original one is the scariest villain of all movies. And I would imagine Jeff Bridges was probably kind of fired up to take on that challenge. In fact, getting ready for this podcast was the first time I realized that this was a remake. But it's an interesting story and definitely interested in watching the original.
We're back in the Wild Bill verse with Wild Bill 95, David Arquette. This movie isn't reviewed very well, but he does play Wild Bill Hickok. Yeah. You know, Wild Bill is like just a really big figure in like fiction.
This is probably his first role as the kind of gruff, hard, grizzled character that I think most people, they just basically associate him with that role. I think this is the first time he did that.
Do you think Wild Bill's like a precursor for Rooster Cogburn and True Grit?
That's interesting.
White Squall, 1996, is a film that I joked with James that our old boss showed me during a consultant training to teach about leadership. So I have it on DVD. White Squall is the story of a guy who runs like a semester at sea ocean academy, takes a bunch of teenage kids out to learn how to run a ship. And then through their bonding, they end up running into a white squall. And it's based on a book, and he plays the sea captain. So maybe his 7 years in the Coast Guard kind of trained him for this moment to be a sea captain on the Albatross. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Never thought about that. That's a good point.
I would say probably not, based on how he talks about his Coast Guard experience. He pretty much was like, I was ahead of the curve by being in the Coast Guard before Vietnam started. And then Vietnam started, and I was like, well, I don't want to get drafted. So I'll just keep scrubbing barnacles off the fucking boats and doing grunt work so I don't have to go over there. He's like, but I definitely didn't get promoted anywhere.
And maybe it's nostalgia. This is actually one of my favorite roles of his. The movie is basically like trying to recapture the energy of a Dead Poets Society and in films like that, right? Of like bringing a bunch of young boys together, blah, blah, blah. And this movie is very much coded in tragedy, like the real story. Spoiler. 6 people die in this incident that happened, and he's brought up on charges because of it. But his just like overseeing this group of kids and like being the leader they need in that time, I just found really compelling. So it's one of my favorite Jeff Bridges roles.
Kyle, question for you. Do you think that it made you a better consultant for our fraternity?
We talk about actors who have like that role, and some actors get that role, and boy, did he get one in 1998. The Big Lebowski plays the dude, alongside Philip Seymour Hoffman, Steve Buscemi, and John Turturro.
He's amazing in this movie.
It's a classic. He's incredible. I feel like a lot, like Goodman's incredible, Seymour Hoffman, like everyone just really kills their role. Coen brothers absolutely in their bag. It's one of those movies that I don't think did well when it was initially released, because like, how do you market? What's the trailer like for this movie that like gets you to be like, can't wait to go see that in theaters?
Yep.
Because it is so unique, but like the moment you watch it, you're like, oh, it's incredibly quotable and it's hilarious.
The Coen brothers are my favorite directors, and it's my third favorite Coen.
I always love Goodman's performance.
Yeah.
In rewatching it for like the 20th time, I've realized that almost every point he makes, he's right. The problem is he's such an asshole.
Yeah, he's just yelling the whole time. Yeah.
It never lands because he's a dick. But like his points are correct.
You're out of your element, Donnie.
He's just such an asshole. All those young men buried over there in the muck over in Quezon and Lombok. Vietnam shit, man. What the fuck does it have to do with Vietnam? Yeah, it's great.
He wanted to and did a ton of research for this movie in regards to what someone like this would dress like and act like. There's nothing that he wears that is by accident. I think it shows because his outfit has become like iconic. The robe, the glasses, the slippers.
White Russians.
Yeah, what he's drinking at like noon. Like it's all so specifically picked out.
Moments like these are complicated. because I've been dreading this since the words Jeff Bridges came out of your mouth 3 weeks ago. There's times where I'm in this position in this conversation and I don't mind it. Shoot your arrows at me. I don't care. And then there's other times where I genuinely feel bad. I feel bad that I don't like this movie. Everyone that I've ever heard talk about it loves it. And the only reason why I'm saying something is for the possible one person that's also like, I don't really like that movie.
Just a call for solidarity right now.
The Will Ferrell episode, I enjoyed that. This one, I don't like it. I don't like the way it makes me feel. I feel like I'm being judged. And I'm not really mad at it. Like, it's just, I just don't like this movie. Maybe a rewatch will do it. I did not rewatch it for this. I just was like, I don't.
This aggression will not stand, man.
Yeah.
See, quoting the movie at me is not going to, it means nothing to me.
Oh, it's the best way to do it.
Well, it's funny. That's the only reason it made me laugh is because he was quoting it at you.
Calmer than you are.
Calmer than you are.
Calmer than
I'm
you are.
staying here. I'm staying. I'm drinking my coffee.
How many Coen Brothers pictures did he do?
True Grit, Big Lebowski. That might be it.
Well, maybe that's only those two. You don't like the movie, clearly. Do you appreciate his performance at all?
Yeah, he's great. I get it.
Okay.
I get what he's doing. And I think what he's doing is great. I mean, I like any performance that has a level of commitment when you're going for something that big and it works. I'll never shade this movie.
Fair.
That's like Napoleon Dynamite for me. Like, I just, it doesn't work. Like, it's that, and people love that movie.
Like Step Brothers for me. It's a movie I can just never embrace, but people love it.
I have an ally.
I think, as a member of a bowling-themed podcast, Aubrey, I think you're just rebelling against the fact that the whole movie goes by and not once does the dude bowl. And I think that really bothers you. You're in the subconscious part of your brain.
That's not it. That's not it.
What kind of bowling team is this? Let's keep it turning here through the millennium, right to the contender, President Evans, another Oscar nom, also Golden Globe and SAG noms. I started watching for about 3 minutes and I was like, this is too real for right now. I can't do it.
Very deep, very dark, but good. Gary Oldman is awesome in this movie.
That's what I've heard.
He's the antagonist, and he's so good.
Are you telling me Gary Oldman plays a good bad guy? There's not
Yeah, really.
a chance.
Yeah.
You're right. Do you think Bridges is worth the Oscar nom in this role?
Yeah, he plays the president. I don't think Gary Oldman was nominated. If I was going to give anyone a nomination, I would give it to Gary Oldman. I believe what's her name was nominated for Best Actress, though. Joan Allen.
Yeah.
He's good, but if I were doing supporting actor, I'd give it to Gary Oldman before Jeff Bridges in this movie.
Okay. Apex, alongside Kevin Spacey, 2001, another Alien film. This guy's stocking up Alien films. He's also got a great voice. So he's narrated a bunch of docs over the years. 2002, he narrated 2 docs, Lost in La Mancha and Lewis and Clark, Great Journey West. Not a shock at all. His voice is not one that hides well. You know it's Jeff Bridges narrating your project.
Yeah.
He's not like Kristen Wiig in How to Train Your Dragon as a rough nut. Tough nut? Rough nut? I can't remember.
They're twins, hard to tell.
Speaking of voice work, Kyle, we did skip The Last Unicorn in 82. And a lot of my research is like, people love that. Like you said, his voice, it's out there. You're not disguising it.
No. But let's take it to our last review, which is Largest Audience Gap from 2006. Great year. And it's a movie called Stick It. Case has it.
Oh, sure does. A teen sports comedy is right up my alley, you know. All right, Stick It is a 2006 teen sports comedy that follows Haley Graham, a former gymnast who rebels against rigid demands of her sport. And arguably one of the most ridiculous plot lines we've ever had. Haley Graham is riding her dirt bike, does a jump, flies through a window of a house. There's about $14,000 worth of damage. The court orders her to join a gymnastics academy where Jeff Bridges is the head coach. And his character's name is Burt Vickerman. One of my best friends growing up was an elite gymnast, and she's currently an elite gymnastics coach. So I asked her how this film was received in the gymnastics community because I didn't want to speak out of turn. And she basically said that it was fun and silly. It was received very similarly to Bring It On by the cheerleading community,
Okay.
which makes sense because Bring It On was written by Jessica Bendinger, who is also the writer and director of this project. This movie had a built-in audience. The film offers a fun and energetic look at the world of competitive gymnastics. Bridges injects the character with a unique blend of gruffness, humor, and unexpected warmth. He's a curmudgeon on the surface, but beneath lies a deep understanding of athletes and a genuine desire to help his athletes perform at a higher level and excel in their sport. Bridges' performance is a masterclass in understated acting. He delivers a ton of really witty, dry lines that as a coach, I know we say these types of things all the time. And he effortlessly conveys the development of a complicated coach and athlete relationship that he has with the main character, Haley Graham. His performance elevates this film beyond a typical teen comedy, adding a layer and depth of heart that resonates with audiences from pretty much all ages. I fully expected to trash this movie. I was pleasantly surprised, and I enjoyed it. However, that being said, this would be a vastly different movie without Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges actually admitted to going to elite gymnastics competitions and video recording coaches so that he could go back and watch how they acted, and he could do that stuff. It was pretty funny to see him in his interview on that. If you're a gymnast, apparently this holds up in the gymnastics community, so go ahead and take a shot if you haven't already seen it.
Given your lead-in, I thought you were going to eviscerate this film.
Yeah.
But it sounds like giving it to either you or Aubrey as coaches was the right move here. Give me the coach perspective, and you gave it.
Interesting project choice.
What a weird departure from so many of the other things he's doing at that time. And you got to think, he has 3 daughters? I wonder if his daughters played a role in the role selection at all.
Could be.
Once you've entered a labyrinth and you've chosen to go into the labyrinth, you have no choice but to go to the center of it. So, there's that.
If this movie came out again and the remote control was further than an arm's length away, I would be perfectly fine watching this movie out. I'm a real champion for the gymnastics community.
He entered the Marvel Cinematic Universe in 2008. Iron Man, Obadiah. I hear the Rigbys know this stuff really well, so I'll toss it to them.
I've never seen Iron Man, but I respect that he played the villain role again. Bald, he looks like Mr. Clean.
Obadiah Stane. This movie's awesome.
Yeah, he's good at it.
And Jeff Bridges is awesome in it.
Yep.
Did he kind of create the roadmap of hey, let's have a high profile, high caliber actor to play these villain roles?
Yes and no. He said that it was they were rewriting the script on set.
Oh.
They're dumping a bunch of money in this with Robert Downey Jr., who is not proven at the point in time, given his checkered past.
Yeah.
And so he said that, luckily Jon Favreau was there to kind of pull all the pieces together. But he's once I realized I'm getting paid a lot of money to be in a $200 million student film, he's that it was a whole different ballgame.
Okay.
He's a little mustache twirly when he gets into his villain bag. I'd say the casting of him is stability.
Okay.
Robert Downey Jr., Terrence Howard, Gwyneth Paltrow. So, you get a little bit of stability with Jeff Bridges. It's a twist that you see coming. It's one of those. Or, he's the friend and mentor type situation, but then actually...
Lazy businessman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those. But he's so damn charming. In such a different way than Robert Downey Jr. It works as a really effective foil.
In the second Iron Man, Sam Rockwell plays basically a similar version of him in that film.
Okay.
Not a superhero, no superpowers, but just a shady business guy.
Sleazy businessman, except was never friends with Tony Stark.
Accurate.
The twist isn't one that's oh no, we didn't see it. It's more of he's pretty much the whole time being oh, don't make me do the thing that it sounds like you're going to make me do. All right, well, now I'm going to do it.
Not if, but when.
Yeah.
Obadiah put the hit out on Tony Stark in this film, so
okay,
wolf in sheep's clothing. Obadiah will not be coming back in Secret Wars. he doesn't survive this first one.
Obadiah Stane is dead.
I don't think he's going to reemerge anytime soon.
He's the exact example of a character who takes on a one-time character in a Marvel film, and he's cool with it.
Yeah.
A lot of actors probably turn down those because they want to come back for the paycheck for the following movies.
Yeah.
And he's I'll do it. It's fine. Whatever. The Men Who Stare at Goats. Talk about a tonal change.
Yeah.
Alongside Kevin Spacey again. Hippie comedic role for him.
Was this the movie that was loosely based on the program where they had training people to distant view. What is that? Remote viewing?
The premise is he plays like the sergeant in, I think, Vietnam, that he goes on a paid retreat basically to study spirituality and all these things. And he comes out leading this new program on how to teach people how to combat without violence.
Okay.
Imagine him with a ponytail as a hippie, probably pretty similar.
Fair.
To what you talked about with the dude. Very similar, very dude-like.
Is Clooney?
Clooney, Ewan McGregor.
This is like a very like Bush era movie. I think they think it's a lot more satirical and funny than it really is. Stupid.
Tonal change again. Crazy Heart plays Bad Blake, executive produces, finally gets an Oscar win, Golden Globe, SAG wins, and a BAFTA nom. So this is his most decorated role up to this point in his career, at least.
I love this movie. I had actually just moved to Texas in 2010. With my job, I'm driving around Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, like the entire Southwest. And this soundtrack, it just captures the geography and the region so accurately. And it was interesting because he's friends with T-Bone Burnett, who was in charge of music on this. And Bridges was like, I don't know if I'm going to do this movie. And then he ran into T-Bone, and T-Bone's like, oh, yeah, I'm doing this movie. You should do it.
Yeah.
Ryan Bingham is one of my favorite musicians, and it's because of this movie. He ended up doing most of the music for this.
Yeah, I like it too. The music is great. And Colin Farrell plays a believable country star.
Oh, yeah.
Who won't make any eye contact with Jeff Bridges at all?
No.
None.
Because he knows.
Mm-hmm.
He knows, man. He knows he screwed him over.
Yep. Do you think he earned the Oscar?
His acceptance speech is awesome.
I remember the crowd just like totally loving it because he's great in it. This probably felt more of like a career achievement, or like it's finally his turn after 5 or 6 nominations at this point, and he'd been acting for 40 years. I have no problem with it. And this launched small little country music for Jeff Bridges. I think he had an album that came out like the next year after this.
Yeah.
Jeff Bridges, better musician than Dennis Quaid, I'll say it here and now, and we'll throw it to Aubrey.
From what I saw, he should have won the Oscar. It was nice to see him really get sad. He really had to layer that up. I didn't see a ton of that through what I watched. It was a lot of emotion in a very subtle way that I would expect him to manage that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated that. The final 15 minutes of this movie really made it for me. The movie's awesome.
I think it was intended to be like a fictionalized biopic. We want this to be predictable, and we want it to feel like like we're studying this Bad Blake.
Yeah. Well, he's back in the Oscar game a year later, 2010. Rooster Cogburn, True Grit, Oscar, BAFTA, SAG noms alongside Haley Steinfeld. Super impressed with her.
Mm-hmm.
What did they say? She got beat by the ugly stick in that movie? Disrespectful. I'll tell you what. I think he's a perfect person to cast for Rooster Cogburn.
He's great in this, but the biggest robbery was that Matt Damon wasn't nominated for Best Supporting Actor. He steals every scene he's in this movie.
Just when he starts spanking Haley, it's like, you listen to the adults.
Yeah.
I love this movie.
Yeah, it's great.
I think Haley Steinfeld's amazing in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with Matt Damon should definitely get more love for something like this. It's a similar performance for Bridges. There's a similar weight to it in Crazy Heart.
Yeah.
But I prefer this one because a lot of his emotion is unstated. A lot of what he's going through isn't said outright.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those final moments hit so much harder.
I think the casting in this movie is particularly good too. Domhnall Gleeson makes an appearance in there, and he's excellent in his little scene. I think Barry Pepper as Ned Pepper is pretty damn good casting for him too. And Brolin as Tom Chaney. He's doesn't have a ton of screen time, but I think he nails it too.
He's the 8th oldest actor ever nominated for a role with this role for an Academy Award for Best Actor. The other person who was also played this role is the 3rd oldest to ever be nominated.
Really?
James coming through with the fire.
Yep. I love it.
Before we get to his next Oscar nomination, so we don't skip over it, 2 stinkers in R.I.P.D. and Seventh Son with Jaimin and Alicia Vikander. We haven't talked about that one in a while, but 2 stinkers in there.
Oh, I watched R.I.P.D.
Oh, you did?
No.
I watched part of R.I.P.D.
Okay. Good for you.
What I love about this movie is it's for all the people on all the podcasts and all the conversations I have that say, why do they just make these remakes and attach these things to it? Why don't they just make original movies? R.I.P.D. is the example, because this is definitely like a ripoff of Men in Black, and it's awful.
Yeah.
Yes.
If it's a bad screenplay, then the movie's going to be bad, regardless if it has an IP attached to it or not.
God, I love Hell or High Water. What a picture.
Hell or High Water is awesome.
Such a good movie.
It is my go-to movie to recommend to people because most people haven't seen it that I recommend it to. Guaranteed, you're going to love it.
Yep. That and The Rock for me. Those are like the two.
Chris Pine is just phenomenal, charismatic, gorgeous human. Ben Foster is just doing Ben Foster.
Yeah.
Outrageous office rocker.
After it.
Getting after it. And then that final scene between Jeff Bridges and Chris Pine, man, the things they're saying that they're not saying, it's so fucking fun.
And the chemistry between him and his partner, great.
But I appreciated the fact that like early on, you thought he was going to be this like really feeble and soft. But as the movie goes on, when he should be getting worn out, his character gets better and stronger.
Mm-hmm.
He's portrayed initially as like this classic trope for deep Texas lawman where he's
Yeah.
a little lazy and he's making racist jokes and
He's like a week away from retirement.
right. You realize he's like actually very good at his job and he's smart. He loves his partner, but he's just fucking with him.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you get to the end, it's like this is a guy who might be willing to go across the line to get justice in his eyes.
Oh, he shows real emotion.
Yeah.
This is one of those that's like, if I hear someone hasn't seen it, I'm like, don't add this to your list. You need to go home and watch this immediately.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
And it's because you can understand the motivations of every main character in the story, right? You understand where the boys are coming from. You understand why he's defending and going after these guys after what they did to his partner. You understand everybody's motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Next year, Only the Brave. He plays Duane. Another really underrated film from 2017. Andy McDowell is in that.
I was living in Texas. I was friends with several firefighters, and they all loved this movie. Anytime I see or have the opportunity to talk about this movie, I always like to speak to what I've been told is a very authentic portrayal of firefighters and the profession. He's like the old chief that is Brolin's mentor and boss.
This movie is highly underrated.
Highly underrated.
It's more of a Brolin movie, though. Brolin really gets after it in this.
Yep.
He has some key scenes in this. It's terribly, terribly sad, though.
Yes, it is.
A flip over to the religious character, Father Flynn in Bad Times, the El Royale role alongside Chris Hemsworth, Dakota Johnson. I don't know if the movie was as good as that trailer. Remember the trailer with Cynthia Erivo singing?
It's so good.
That trailer was one of my favorite trailers in the past 7 years. It was incredible.
Still a fun movie, though.
I think he does a great job in the first half of that movie of presenting his character, but yet there's some mystery to it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's a priest, you never feel like settled in with his character. Like there's got to be something else going on here.
What I remember in this movie was Hemsworth comes in for 5 minutes and I'm blown away by him.
Yes.
Comes in as like a
It's like a Rip Charles Manson.
Charles Manson.
Yeah.
It's just like, I was like, dude, he crushed it.
Casey, you want to talk about how in The Old Man, Dan Chase, he actually found out turns out he had a tumor in his stomach. Did you read that story?
I did not.
While he was filming the show The Old Man, which he got Emmy, Golden Globe, and SAG noms for with John Lithgow, his stomach was hurting after some fight scenes, getting punched in the stomach. Turns out he had a tumor the size of like a grapefruit in his stomach, and he wouldn't have known if not for some stunts he was doing in the show.
He's tremendous in this show. And it's a very similar character that we talked about in Hell or High Water, except his character goes in and out of this dominance. Like you're just looking at him, you're like, there's no way this guy's a threat. And all of a sudden he disarms the entire room. Before anybody can look back at him again, now he's back to this, I'm not a threat guy. And he carries this role really well. It's a demanding role. Number one, you're working off of John Lithgow, who's unbelievable. And then you're also going back and forth in a lot of different times. And he does a really good job of carrying this show and this role.
Yeah, it makes sense. Late in his career like this, he's going to do some TV show work. He hadn't really done TV much throughout his entire career. It's always been pictures.
And he's doing an action show in his 70s.
Yep.
He's doing stunts in his 70s.
And he found out about that tumor right as COVID was happening too. So like because of the exposure to COVID and a lot of people in his hospital had been exposed to it, they were worried that he was going to make it.
Ah,
Kind of an existential crisis for him.
he's amazing.
Any other roles that we missed that you guys think are worth noting?
Not good movies, but a really weird movie that he did, Tim Robbins, I think in maybe 99, called Arlington Road.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Deeply creepy and prescient movie right before 9/11.
Yeah, guilty pleasure.
And his character gets flipped to become manic, and he plays manic so well.
Yeah. Also a very, very, very depressing ending. Kind of shocking endings out of any.
Yeah.
Spoiler, the terrorists win.
Yeah. Yeah.
One other project that I thought was really interesting is a project that he did with his brother and his niece called Acting, the First 6 Lessons.
Oh, yeah.
It's a documentary / short story.
From 2022.
Yeah, it's based on a book that his dad passed down to the sons who are passing it down. It's basically interviews with 3 generations of Bridges actors. And he shares some really cool, like, acting things in there. It's a really interesting watch. So if you're a fan of Jeff Bridges, Beau Bridges, or his niece, Emily Bridges, take a look at that. It's about an hour and a half, and it's 6 lessons. And they talk about each lesson, and then they have, like, a short story, like a stage play style of demonstrating that story. It's a really good look at acting.
Some of the other ones that didn't really make the cut, he's in Seabiscuit, which you could have just ate up a bunch of time. You know, his character's pretty important in that story.
That movie's great, and he's great in it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, how about Blown Away with Tommy Lee Jones? Terrible movie.
I'm not blown away by that one.
He's an IRA terrorist. Oh, it's awful.
Hey, but Jeff Bridges' character is super cool.
And Lloyd Bridges is in that too. That's like one of Lloyd Bridges' last film roles.
Yep.
Someone literally mentioned it, Surf's Up, the other day to me, while I was like, oh, Jeff Bridges. And I was like, because I know he's in that. The Little Prince in 2015 is a really good animated movie that he does a voice role in that is cool to note. And the last one, just for you, James, he was in a dog movie in one in 2009 called A Dog Year. And I figured you can give me the review on if the dog dies or not.
Yeah, let me just type that in real quick. What's the name of the movie?
A Dog Year.
Dog die. A dog year. If we had to guess, what would you guys guess?
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to go with very dead. Aggressively dead, some might say.
Does the dog die? You know what? They tried to tell me in a different movie. The Channing Tatum, in case you're wondering, in the movie Dog with Channing Tatum, the dog doesn't die, in case you're wondering. In this movie, the dog does die.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Called it. Case, hit us with some top performances. What do you got?
I settled on a older list that I would normally do. This list comes from Rolling Stone, and it's titled The Dude Abides. Every Jeff Bridges movie ranked worst to best.
Oh.
So yes, I have 65 movies ranked. We'll focus on the top 10, and it was published November 15th, 2017.
Let's go with the namesake, Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski is, and they brought it up, it would be controversial, is number 2.
Last Picture Show.
Last Picture Show is number 7.
There we go.
True Grit.
True Grit is number 3.
Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
Thunderbolt and Lightfoot came in at 17.
Yeah, I figured.
Crazy Heart.
Crazy Heart comes in at number 6.
American Heart.
American Heart comes in at number 4, Kyle.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, shit. I was just trying to make a joke. I didn't think it'd be on there.
Starman.
How about Starman?
Starman comes in at number 8. I told you we'd knock out the top 10. This is a good list.
Iron Man.
Iron Man is not in the top 10.
Hell or High Water has got to be on there, right?
Hell or High Water comes in at number 5.
Hell yeah, baby.
Unfortunately, this list came out before Kingsman and the Golden Circle came out, in which I saw in theaters, and there's a scene where one of the characters fingers another character and they zoom in on it.
Oh, lovely.
I watched it take place on like a 70-foot screen and I burst out laughing. It was so funny to watch in front like that.
There are 3 left.
10, 9, and 1.
Oh my God, what's number 1?
Seabiscuit.
Seabiscuit, it's number 29.
The Contender.
The Contender is not in the top 10.
Damn.
What is number 1?
I will tell you, Kyle, you're a fan of it.
Tron.
Is it White Squall?
It is not White Squall, and it is not Tron. White Squall comes in at 32.
Is it Stick It?
No.
Fat City.
Fat City is number 10. So we're missing number 1 and number 9.
Is it Tucker, the man in his dream?
Tucker, Man in His Dream is number 14.
You're going to have to tell us. I mean, I feel bad that we haven't done number 1.
One of them included his brother.
Fabulous Baker Boys.
Fabulous Baker Boys is number 9.
What is number 1? How are we not getting it?
And number 1, Kyle, you told us in our text message that you enjoyed it.
The Fisher King? Is it the Fisher King?
Number 1 on the list is The Fisher King.
Nice.
All right. That's interesting.
And he said in the description, but this is one of the greatest acting jobs by anybody anywhere. True, Terry Gilliam's modern-day fable is usually discussed in terms of Robin Williams' admittedly wonderful performance as a former academic who's lost his mind. But what anchors the movie is Bridges.
He's good.
He plays a mouthy, shock jock DJ whose live rants inspires a listener to go on a shooting rampage. He then finds himself brought cosmically low, stripped of money and fame, living out his days as a suicidal alcoholic.
He's good. He's really good in the movie.
Pulled in number 1, according to the Rolling Stone.
Rolling Stone has never lied, right, James?
Wow.
Not that I'm aware of.
Munson Meter time. What we do, we rate every actor on a scale of 0 to 100 based on a variety of factors that could include longevity, project choice, pop culture impact, their acting range, awards footprint, any other talents they might have, their personal life, comedic chops, box office success, or anything else that matters to us as Munsons. We're going to start with Case.
I mean, I've enjoyed and I've been a fan of Jeff Bridges as long as I can remember enjoying movies. I did enjoy learning a lot more about the early part of his career. He was really good from the beginning. And I attribute a lot of that to, just the family he grew up in. I really appreciate that he finds joy in acting and he finds joy in the process and he finds joy in storytelling. I also appreciate that he is committed to being a professional as an actor. And, I really enjoyed the story he shared about almost quitting acting before being on the Iceman Cometh. I think he has really good range. He's had multiple iconic roles up until Wild Bill. He had 20 years where he wasn't typecast at all. And part of that typecasting, I think, is the fact that he is 70 years old now. And playing the old, gruff, wise character is probably just an automatic at this point. But I'm a really big fan of his. In fact, I love the fact that I got Stick It because it is such a different role than I've ever seen him play in. And I would never watch that movie if it weren't for this podcast. And so with that, I'm going to give him one of my higher scores. Probably unsurprisingly, I'm going to give him a 95.
That's pretty good.
We're going to start out high, boys.
Something we didn't talk about. He has a lot of really interesting takes on healthy relationships and marriages. He's a big marriage guy, firmly believes in it. Pretty rare in Hollywood to see like a couple stay together that long and not have any documented issues or problems and things like that. And so that's cool. It's cool to see that from an actor.
Yeah.
I think his acting toolkit is pretty immense. He could play a variety of roles. Even if you don't love Starman, you still kind of look at it and go, all right, you could do something a little bit different with that. He's not just playing one character. And he has one of those iconic ones in The Dude. I'm guessing wouldn't carry a ton of weight with younger people today. You say Jeff Bridges, but The Dude abides, man. Like, that's an all-timer. He's going to carry that with him everywhere he goes. And he's rose above just that role, too. A lot of people think of Sean William Scott. He got stuck in Stifler, and he'll never get out of it. And
yeah,
Bridges has that, but he's more than that, which I think is pretty cool. He's a musician and philanthropist. That's worth a lot of points. He's got the stage background. That's worth points. And I think he's been remarkably consistent since his start in the 60s. Hell, even the 50s, if you want to go that. But since when he started acting, and he didn't really have many lulls. Actors have lulls, 5-6 years. They don't really do much other than maybe like a 4-year period there. He stayed consistent, good project choices. Yeah, he has some stinkers. Yeah, he has some box office bombs. But most actors do have those too. He's not immune. And the 7 Oscar noms, pretty good. And that list that Case sent just reinforced how legendary he is just by the roles he's turned out. Now, I'm not going to give him a number as high as Case did, but I think an 85 is a pretty darn good score for Jeff Bridges, all things considered. All right, Rigby.
Yeah, this is going to be one of my higher ones too. I think just given the range of stuff he's done, I think 50 years later as an actor, he's still super well respected by his peers. And now he's obviously, kind of assumed the grandpa role. But I think everything he does is with gravitas and a nice little wink to the camera. Might add a couple points because I discovered recently that his home that Lloyd Bridges gave to him when he died just burned down 2 weeks ago in the Malibu fires. So
yeah,
might give him a boost just for morale purposes alone. All jokes aside, I mean, I'm looking at this filmography and it's just heater after heater. I mean, enjoyable thrillers, neo-noir thrillers aren't necessarily the best of their genre, but they're enjoyable. And then, top 10 comedy for me in Big Lebowski, and a totally iconic role. I mean, 25 years later, we still talk about their performances. So I think I'm going to be with Case. I'm going to split the baby and I'm going to go 90.
Split the baby. I've never heard that one before. That is a new one. I love it.
That sounds awful.
My math holds up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We'll see where it goes from here. James, you're up.
I came into this kind of having an idea of where I thought I would score him. And similar to what Case had mentioned, I was pleasantly surprised by his earlier stuff. I think Big Lebowski is one of the funnier movies of all time in my eyes. If it's not on the Mount Rushmore for me, it's just outside of it. I love Hell or High Water. I love True Grit. I think they're great. But in learning about his older stuff when he was younger, it was really fun to watch and kind of watch him develop as an actor. Then I found out about his awards footprint and I was genuinely shocked. And so that bumped his score up a lot for me. So I'm going to give him an 84.
All right. Aubrey, round us out.
Everything's pretty much been said and well said. A lot of gravitas, a lot of talent. Been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He's just legitimately a good actor. He's one of those where when you say his name, the first thing out of my mouth, Jeff Bridges. He's great. That's just kind of what it is. He's great at acting. He does have versatility. I'm not as strong on some of the stuff I've seen as I was expecting to be or would have liked to have been, but he's a great actor. A lot of charisma, can carry a lot of different things, can do a lot of different things, and still working at a high clip this late in his career is really impressive. So I'm landing on 86.
All right, and with that gives Jeff Bridges an 88 on the dot, which puts him in 9th place between Maggie Smith and Adam Driver. Thoughts, reactions?
I think we called it. I think we knew he was going to be higher than his box office score, which was 35.
Yeah. The metric we're closest to is his critic rank at 13.
Yep.
That feels right.
I was thinking around 15 is where I thought he would land.
Number 1 is Leo, 2 is Michael Caine, 3 is Philip Seymour Hoffman, 4 Jennifer Lawrence, and 5 is Jamie Lee Curtis.
Nice.
And then if you want to continue down the top 10, 6 is Michelle Williams, which grinds Aubrey's gears.
It makes me so mad.
7 is Max von Sydow, Maggie Smith, Jeff Bridges, and Adam Driver. That's your top 10. Right?
That's a super talented, well-respected top 10.
And for the record, Natalie Portman is tied with Adam Driver at 10th overall. They have the same score.
It's almost perfect, except for one glaring error. But it's okay.
All right, Aubrey, what has he got coming?
Surprisingly, even though he is 1,000 years old, he has 6 things.
Holy cow.
One is already slated to come out in 2025, Tron Ares, which I'm sure everyone is really excited for. 2 in production and 3 in development. The ones in development don't have much attached to them, so I'm not going to really mention those. The ones in production I am because they're super interesting. So you have The Carnival at the End of Days, where he plays God. It's a Terry Gilliam movie.
Oh, cool.
That movie's going to fuck. If Jeff Bridges is playing God in a Terry Gilliam movie.
Let me get through the rest of it, because some of it sounds like it's going to be amazing and some of it sounds like it's going to be terrible. Disappointed with what's gone down on planet Earth, wants to wipe out humanity, and the only one who wants to save them is Satan, played by Johnny Depp, who convinces God that 2 young people he's found are the new Adam and Eve. One of the young people is Asa Butterfield, who's almost 30. Adam Driver's in this movie and Jason Momoa. Parts of it are really exciting. Other parts of it are very confusing. I love the title, though. The Carnival at the End of Days. I'm here for it.
Yeah, maybe I'm less excited about this movie now. I Googled it and I'm like, what? It looks like a freaking Tim Burton movie.
That happens to make me more excited. The other movie is Grendel. The legendary monster at the heart of the Beowulf epic steps forth to tell his side of the story. A live-action feature film based on John Gardner's classic novel, which is directed by Robert Krzyzewski, who is not someone that excites me. Dave Bautista's in this movie as Beowulf.
I like this cast.
Sam Elliott, Bryan Cranston, Thomasin McKenzie.
Thomasin
McKenzie's in it. I'm watching it because she's amazing. The cast excites me. The director does not. I don't know. Could be good. We'll see.
The jury's out, baby.
He's got 3 wild projects all close to being made. So who knows?
We shall see. Next episode's going to hit on February 20th. We've got Mike Vandevort coming back. He was with us for Anthony Mackie, Gina Davis, and F. Murray Abraham. And the 5 actors on the wheel for this episode were Chadwick Boseman, Alan Tudyk, Scout Taylor Compton, Russell Crowe, and Tom Cruise. That is a star-studded lineup there. What do we love? What do we hate?
I love Chadwick Boseman. I love that one.
Tom Cruise might be the highest score I've given, and it's about someone who I genuinely think's an odd, weird person. I'm just so impressed by him as an actor.
Talk about Far and Away, that wonderful Irish classic.
And it gives me another excuse to watch all the Mission Impossible movies again.
Mm-hmm. Bingo.
So this way my wife won't be mad at me.
It's for the pod.
Yeah. Watch a Fallout again? Yes, but this time I have to. I'm good with any of these choices as long as it's not Scout Taylor Compton. So I don't have to watch those really bad horror movies.
Yeah, I don't know much about her.
I don't know if I know who that is.
She's got 107 acting credits, so she's done a lot. But her top ones are Halloween, Halloween 2, An American Crime, and The Runaways.
Not the ones you're thinking, though.
No, not the ones you're thinking.
Not the Halloweens you're thinking. The Rob Zombie remakes. She's in a bunch of Rob Zombie movies. That's why I don't want to watch them.
Now you have my attention.
Alan Tudyk was in Knocked Up, and also he's in Dale and Tucker versus Evil, which is one of my favorite horror comedies.
Yeah, he's funny.
All right, who would Mike pick of these 5?
Russell Crowe.
Mackie, Gina Davis, F. Murray Abraham. Profile. I'm going to also vote Russell Crowe.
I'm going Chadwick.
Chadwick? Okay. I want Cruise.
I would like to do Chadwick. That's the one I would like to do.
We all know why. He's got like 25 credits.
I want Tommy Cruise.
Yeah, that's true.
But I hear that too. John, if you had to come back, if you had to pick one of these 5, what would you pick? I think I know the answer, but I'll still ask.
Yeah, it's Help Me, Tom Cruise. I think Tom Cruise is like one of the most fascinating actors ever. Not just today, but literally ever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Such a strange, weird, alienating guy, but like empties the tank and everything.
Yeah.
Legitimate old school movie star.
John Rigby doesn't decide. Mike Vandevort doesn't decide. I don't decide, contrary to popular belief. The wheel decides, and we'll see what happens. John, you conjured Tom Cruise to help you, and you're here, and it's fantastic. We love having a Rigby back on the podcast.
Yeah, we do.
This is your kind of red carpet moment. You know how this goes. Wise words, anything you want to plug, the floor is yours, my friend.
Really enjoyed coming back, and my brother says hello for the listeners who still remember him, and he's well, even though he's had to smell smoke for 3 straight weeks, so he's hanging in there. But no, this was a lot of fun, and thanks for letting me talk about Jeff Bridges. And
Hell yeah, dude.
Oh, yeah. You never have too much Rigby in your life. We're glad you jumped on tonight, buddy.
It was good to see you guys.
Absolutely.
Well, as we wrap up, you can find us on Instagram, Munsons at the Movies. You can email us, munsonsatthemovies@gmail.com. Any final thoughts from Jeff Bridges?
Man, I've got certain information, all right? Certain things have come to light, and, has it ever occurred to you that instead of, running around blaming me, given the nature of all this new shit, this could be a lot more complex. I mean, it might not be just such a simple,
Munsons Out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?
Let me explain something to you. I am not Mr. Lebowski. You're Mr. Lebowski. I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, that or his dudeness or duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
Are you employed, sir?
Employed?
You don't go out looking for a job dressed like that, do you? On a weekday?
Is this what day is this?
Well, I do work, sir. So if you don't mind...
No, I do mind. The dude minds. This will not stand, This aggression will not stand, man.